I've got an idea. I think that all 30-year-olds should be given £10,000 from the banks of baby boomers. We've got a situation in this country now where millennials are the first generation in modern times expecting to be poorer than their parents. We, as 30-year-olds like me, are half as likely to own a house as people my age 30 years ago. In fact, the cost of a home in Britain compared to average incomes has as big a gap today as it did, wait for it, in the 1860s. It is a Dickensian situation. So a Tory peer has come up with a suggestion, David Willits, that rather than waiting for baby boomers to die and pass on their wealth when millennials like me are 50, 60, maybe 70 if you're lucky, that we shouldn't wait for it. We should get them to give £10,000 to every 30-year-old in the country today. Now, I think that is a fantastic idea because it would stimulate economic growth and get us on the housing ladder. So I say, cough up, Granny. It's time for the young to have the chances that you had. Now, Belinda.
I just can't believe what you say.
You're a homeowner. You've got stability. What do you think to the idea?
I think your relentless crusade against the elderly, Benjamin, it reveals something a little bit sinister inside. What happened with elderly people?
Hates old people?
I mean, my God, this is a generation. That was good. This is the generation who didn't have it so easy when they were born. No. They were put on rations after the war. Their parents, either one or both, may well have suffered trauma and therefore, did not have the sort of snuggly, cuddly, bugly parenting that all you lot, get in your generation. Interest rates. They had to toughen up by themselves. They were not entitled. They didn't think that they deserved this and they worked hard. They had paper rounds. They worked every hour they had and they saved up. Now, I'm sorry about the housing crisis for your generation.
You're not, though, are you? Because you're profiting from it.
I'm profiting from it. Don't be ridiculous. I'm saying
when you bought your house, I'm guessing when you started to have a first property that you owned, or maybe you and your husband or partner owned, it would have been, the 2000s, maybe earlier, right? And it's 3 times the house prices now compared to that period.
If this is the case, Benjamin,
have incomes gone up that fast?
To penalise and punish the elderly when they have worked all their lives to put into the system and say it's your fault, whingy, whiny, we're going to be envious.
We're being punished.
No, by the politics, so be the change you want to see in the world.
Taxes, I am actually, and I'm about to tell you about the change I want to see in the world.
Are you good? As long as it's not whining about it.
I'm going to stop whining about it, but we are being taken advantage of at the moment to profit, to help the old. Most of taxpayers' money is spent in 2 departments, the NHS, so the health department, and the Department for Work and Pensions. Those departments disproportionately serve the older population. Now, I've got no issue with that, but let's not pretend that it is not young working people that is paying for the public services for old people. So actually, we are having it hard, and I just look at the future, and we see a future of perpetually higher taxes to pay for this increasing ageing population, a shrinking labour force, and you're here saying we've got nothing to worry about.
The young stop voting for mass immigration parties. The young stop voting for parties that don't build houses.
Immigrants actually pay taxes, pensioners don't.
You cannot deny the massive relation, I'm sorry, to millions and millions coming here when we're only producing 200,000 to 300,000 houses a year. This is you're delusional, your generation.
And which generation brought those policies in?
The Institute for Fiscal Studies has said that what you just said is a complete nonsense because the migrants coming over here do need state support.
To anyone that thinks it's crazy that a baby boomer should pass 10 grand to a 30-year-old, that is what we do to them in our taxes all the time. Okay? And that is storing up danger for our economy because you're going to have a generation of people that can't get basic financial stability. And that means 2 things that I care about. It means you can't have kids because you don't have the money to do it, and it means you're not going to take risks to build businesses because you don't have the money to do it.
That's not the fault of the elderly. Leave them alone.
Transfers of cash between generations are higher than they've ever been, and that's because older people are looking after younger generations. They're already doing what you are trying to call for state.
You're the youngest on the panel. What do you make of it?
I think your idea to just randomly redistribute £10,000, not just your idea but the Tory peers, to younger people is not going to stimulate economic growth. It's going to cause a massive spike in also the cost of deposits. So I think that's mad. But before I have a heart attack, I've got to agree with you. The idea that the boomers, and I love my grandparents, but something my granddad's always told me, and he grew up in poverty in the East End, sharing a bed with his brother until he was 15 with holes in the roof. And he said, we had less than you ever had, but we are freer than you will ever be. And the reason is the welfare state and mass migration and an influx of dependents has increased the tax burden to the point of where it has confiscated our ability to have social mobility. We can't have a house, we can't have families, and so rather than redistribute tax, just lower migration.
I agree with you there. I'm just saying, do not direct that anger constantly at the elderly who've put in their whole lives to the tax system and don't deserve your angst, Benjamin. Go for the politicians.
But you do realise that the boomer
need
generation...
to look into your views on all people, to be honest.
But you do realise, Belinda and Darren, defenders of the boomers, that the boomer generation, by the time they die, will have got more out of the state than they put in.
Well,
by the tune of about 300,000.
They worked harder. They had more jobs. They had paper rounds. They worked every hour God sent them.
I have a job.
Felt entitled to nothing.
Lots of people have jobs.
But this is the problem. The social contract has been broken. You have a generation of people that work hard. It's ridiculous to suggest that the average 20-something doesn't work
actually work.
Now you're revealing your true colours. You actually have a hatred of young people who are facing these problems.
I've got 4 children who won't be able to buy their houses, and I'm not going to tell them to demonise the elderly and punish them for it. No, I'll say make your own life, make your own changes, be responsible for your own actions, and be the change you want to see in the world.
That's why young people hate their parents, because they haven't helped them.
I don't want to compare you to...
We used to before the boomers.
I don't want to call you Carol Vorderman because you won't appreciate it. But how in the maths?
The biggest insult
does someone on 30 grand a year buy a £450,000 starter flat?
Something for you guys to work out and blame the government for. Leave old people alone.
Who voted the government in?
I was going to say, all of you moved to the northeast, but please don't.